Just to get a couple of things, out of the way early. I have zero interest in sort of advocating today or trying to convince anybody of anything. I understand that the topic we talk about is a topic that at first blush, I can tell you what my first reaction to it, based on the reading of 3 words, which is national popular vote. My first reaction to a sentence like that is bad idea, right? Because I'm a strict constructionist, and I don't like a lot of things. I don't like really anything that's national. There are very few things that are popular that I like, and anytime I hear about voting reform or election reform, I kind of am hardwired to think, well, how does it make it easier for Democrats to steal elections, right? So I know where my journey with this bill started, which was very skeptical about whether or not I believe the current system was broken and needed to be fixed, right? And that's where my journey started, and now I sit in front of you as a full-throated advocate for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, because I believe the current system is broken, right? I believe that the Electoral College allows the states to reform it in a way that makes it more relevant and more meaningful in my life and the life of all of American voters on a state-by-state basis. And now I'm a full-throated advocate for the plan. Okay, that doesn't mean that I'm here to convince you that it's the right thing to do for Georgia or that it's the best idea in the history of American politics. I'm just here to discuss with you a little bit about my journey and sort of my understanding of the Electoral College and the Constitution and what it is and what it says, because I've read it, I don't just wave it, right? And then sort of give you a little information about the current system we use for electing the president and how that's no more or less the Electoral College than the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which I support, right? And then to talk a little bit about why I think National Popular Vote, the Interstate Compact, maybe, certainly I believe is in the best interest of my home state of Minnesota, and maybe in the best interest of your home state of Georgia, which I'll let the Georgians decide, okay? Because, I understand that I'm not down here to tell you what Georgia ought to do with her electoral votes, right? That's up to your legislature to decide. So real quick, I just want to make sure we all start from a premise that is fact-based, right? And emotion-free about the Electoral College and what it is. Because I was suffering under the misconception that the state-based winner-take-all law that Georgia has and my home state of Minnesota has, right, and 48 other jurisdictions have, 47 states and the District of Columbia all have the state-based winner-take-all law, right? That is not the Electoral College. That's just how the states over time chose to use the Electoral College. Okay, so the Electoral College is the 17 words in the United States Constitution in Article 2, Section 1 that says each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors. Okay, that is the Electoral College. It's the power of the legislature to award electors. Now, 49 jurisdictions have the state-based winner-take-all law that says when the Democratic candidate wins one more popular vote than the Republican candidate in my home state of Minnesota, the Democratic candidate gets all 10 of our electors. That's the state-based winner-take-all law, and that's a state statute you'll find nowhere in the Constitution. And you'll find it nowhere in the records of debate at the Constitutional Convention. Okay, so anybody who wants to own the current system like it's the founder system needs to understand when the framers took 30 votes on 22 separate days, one thing they never contemplated, discussed, or debated, or voted on was the state-based winner-take-all law that Georgia uses, Minnesota uses, and 48 other states in the District of Columbia use, right? Well, I guess 48 states in the District of Columbia. Okay? So the Electoral College is the power of the state to award electors. 2 states right now do it differently than the rest of us. Maine and Nebraska has what's called a congressional district system. And that's simply a state statute that the state of Nebraska and Maine have, right? It didn't require a constitutional convention to make that change. It required a simple majority vote of their legislature. Okay, so I just want to make sure, because I'm in a group that I think cares about the Constitution, and I think more groups should, right, that we have an established predicate that says, okay, look, the Electoral College is the power of the state to award electors in any manner the state believes is in their best interest through a sovereign vote of the body of government most sovereign to its people, which is the legislature. Okay? So that is important to understand before we move forward. Now, just because the state can change the way that awards electors doesn't mean it should, right? There's a lot of things that the state legislature can do and that they probably shouldn't do, right? And I know there's not a lot of people in this room or many rooms, well, I don't know about many rooms, but I'm sure there's not a lot of people in this room that are interested in bills or legislation to fix a non-problem, right? You would have to think that there was a problem with the current system before you would support changing it, because we got all kinds of things to do as opposed to search for problems. And my sense is the current system we use for electing the president is fundamentally and badly broken. Okay, so when I understood the Constitution, I was like, okay, what problem am I trying to fix? Right? And the problem I'm trying to fix is a single subject, which is the general election campaign for President of the United States, that I believe is fundamentally broken. That's why I'm here as a full-throated proponent of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, is because I believe that the system we're getting ready to live through again is a fundamentally broken system. It's a fundamentally huge systemic problem, and it leads to bad politics, and it leads to bad public policy. Okay? So my experience tells me that that is true. It is my truth, doesn't mean it's going to end up being your truth. Okay? Now, the reason I think the current system is fundamentally broken is because if you look at this one-pager that says National Popular Vote on the front, but you turn it around to the back, where there's a little bit of data, this is Exhibit A of why I think the current system is fundamentally broken. And you need to understand, at times in my life, I participated in the kind of campaigns that I'm getting ready to talk about, which are presidential campaigns at significant levels. Right? So I have my own experience that makes this true to me. But in the 2012 presidential election, this is what you're looking at as it relates to the general election, the data on the back here. How many people know what a battleground state is? Raise your hand. Okay, a battleground state is a closely divided state, right, that presidents need to win in order to win all of their electoral votes under the current system, so they can be elected president of the United States. Right? So for example, when George W. Bush was running for president, when he was running for his first election campaign and his re-election campaign, he needed to win the critical battleground state of Florida in order to get elected president of the United States. How many people know what a flyover state is? Same show of hands, right? A flyover state is a non-battleground state, meaning a non-competitive state, that you're either going to win or you're going to lose, and you know that well in advance when you become the nominee. If you look at Mr. Trump, who's now the Republican nominee, he already knows the 11 states he's going to compete for, because if he does not win 10 out of those 11 states as a Republican, he cannot win the election, right? Because there's a significant Democratic advantage in the Electoral College currently. It's called the blue wall, and I'll get to that in a minute. But what I'm getting at here is that Mr. Trump knows exactly the 9 out of 11 states he has to win in order to be elected president of the United States. And if you go to that newfangled tool, Google, and you type it in, Mr. Trump will talk a great deal about what those states are. Right now he's got a laser-like focus on Pennsylvania, which would change the blue wall fundamentally. That gives him more paths to the presidency than any candidate has had on the Republican side in a while. That's why his big emphasis right now is on Pennsylvania. But he certainly has to win Florida or Ohio along with Pennsylvania, or Florida and Ohio with Pennsylvania, in order to win the presidential election. Okay? And so that's the system that's in play right now. Now, if you look at the 2012 presidential election, you'll see the difference between a battleground state and a flyover state. If you go to the second state in black, it's the battleground state of Florida, where Governor Romney spent and Barack Obama spent $175,776,780 campaigning to the political interest of the battleground state voters of Florida. Okay, that is what a battleground state looks like. There were 40 visits, meaning post-convention visits by the two campaigns as they sought the presidency. Now, if you contrast that to your home state of Georgia, there were 0 visits during the general election campaign and $6,020 spent appealing to the issues of importance to the voters of Georgia. Okay? Now, if it was just about money and visits, I wouldn't have much of a problem there, but money and visits are a proxy for political influence as it relates to the President of the United States. Okay, so by doing simple math, you might have to grant me a premise that a voter in Florida in a general election campaign for the presidency is 176 million times more important than a voter in Georgia to the candidates who seek the American presidency. Okay? So if it was about money and visits, that would be one thing. Although that money has to come from somewhere. And I'll say that in this election, the 2012 election, nearly $22 million left Georgia to fund political activity in battleground states, which is money that's very useful in down-ballot races, and I think really important to building the body politic and filling rooms like this and strong state parties. But the truth, what is very concerning about this is it's a proxy for political influence. Okay, because I'm not here for political purposes. I'm here because philosophically, I do not believe that Georgia has 16 electoral votes to preserve the disproportionate political influence of the voters of the state of Georgia. I'm sorry, Florida. In fact, 16 electoral votes are here to advance the interests of Georgians. That's why you have electors, okay? So this is a proxy for influence. So a couple of facts to back that up. If you are a battleground state, you are twice as likely to get an exemption from No Child Left Behind as if you are a flyover state. Just got done talking about education. Largest federal intrusion in public education in my lifetime was the Bush administration when we passed No Child Left Behind. Twice as likely to get an exemption if you are a battleground state. Twice as likely to get disaster relief. Okay? So Savannah River floods, right? Don't build your house so close to the river, right? A sink is leaking in Ohio, might be a federal disaster declaration. Little hyperbole, but you're twice as likely to get that disaster declaration if you are a battleground state. Okay? Now that's not why Georgia has electors, is to preserve the political influence of battleground states vis-a-vis Georgia. Now I want to hone in on one other piece of big federal policy that got pretty expensive. Okay, it's called the Prescription Drug Benefit, Part D, that was passed by my president, President Bush. Okay, it was a $1 trillion free drugs for seniors entitlement program, right, that we passed because we were looking at cells, right, in the I-4 corridor of the battleground state of Florida. Okay, that's between Tampa Bay and Daytona Beach. We held the board open in Congress for 6 hours to get our last vote to pass that bill, because if we couldn't win the I-4 corridor in Florida by enough margins, we could not win the battleground state of Florida and go on to fight and win the global war on terror. You know, our mantra was, good people do bad things in bad systems. Or you'll hear it as, you have to win to govern, or all the things that you'll hear in the mantra of American politics. All of that is a direct result of the system we currently use for electing our president. I believe that to be problematic. Now, why is Florida so important? If you look at the other chart I gave you, it's called the blue wall. Dangerously close to single-party control of presidential elections. I will argue with you that the reason to support this bill has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with philosophy and policy, but this is what drives the policy. The blue wall shows you the states in the last 24 years that voted for the Democratic candidate for president, and it totals 242 electoral votes. Okay? Republicans carried states totaling 102 electoral votes. Now I need some math majors. 242 plus 29 is what? 271, right? How many electoral votes to win the presidency under Article 2, Section 1? 270, right? What has 29 electoral votes? Florida. Any wonder why American presidents would get transactional, whether they're Republican or Democratic, in order to win the most important prize in any presidential election, which is Florida, given the very real facts about where politics sits these days. Okay? So my experience is that philosophically, I know that the legislature has the power to award electors to advance their states. I know in the current system, 4 out of 5 states are ceding that political state power to make battleground state voters more important in 1 out of 5 states. And my truth is it has a significant impact on public policy at every level of government. In fact, more impact than anything else your legislature or your county commission or your school board might do, because all of those federal unfunded mandates determine what happens, and that's the system we use for running for president. Okay? So I've come to the conclusion that the current system is fundamentally broken. My life experience tells me it's broken badly. I know that the legislature has the power to fix it, and the only reform that I support is the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, because it's the only way to do 3 things, right? One is to preserve the state power to award electors and the Electoral College, which is the power of the legislature to award electors. 2, it guarantees the presidency to the candidate who gets the most popular votes in all 50 states through the Electoral College. And 3, the only reason I'm interested in doing that is because it makes every voter in every state politically relevant in every presidential election, which I believe is in the best interest of 4 out of 5 states who are currently spectators when it comes to electing the president. Okay? How does it work? It's an interstate compact. Interstate compacts are authorized in Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. It allows states to form agreements amongst themselves to advance their interests. Okay? How many people know what Powerball is? Powerball is not my favorite interstate compact, but it is an interstate compact. When I buy my lottery ticket in Minnesota and you win the lottery, you want to get paid, right? What holds that together is a contract amongst the states. That's what National Popular Vote is. It's an interstate compact. You have a tri-state water compact here in Georgia that Florida wins every time on because it's a battleground state vis-a-vis the interests of Georgia, but it's an interstate compact. It's a tri-state water compact. It's how you get your drinking water, treat your watershed. Really important stuff. Interstate compact holds it together. National Popular Vote is an interstate compact that says any time on July 20th of a presidential year, there are states in the compact totaling 270 or more electoral votes, a majority of the Electoral College. They award those electors in block to the candidate who gets the most popular votes in all 50 states. Okay? They don't award the electors based on who gets the most popular votes in the compacting states. Right? They don't award a majority of the Electoral College to the candidate who gets the most votes in your state. Right? They award a majority of the Electoral College to the candidate who gets the most popular votes in all 50 states. Okay? Leverages the power in Article 2, Section 1 with the power in Article 1, Section 10 to fix the problem I'm talking about. Okay? Georgia enters like the other 11 states have entered, totaling 165 electoral votes. A simple majority vote of their legislature. They withdraw just like every other compacting state can withdraw. A simple majority vote of their legislature. That's how you preserve the state power to award electors and preserve the Electoral College, because it's not broken. Right? What's broken is the way 4 out of 5 states are using it to really make me politically irrelevant as a voter in Minnesota in every presidential election, which is what I have been. And I might posit, not argue, right? Make you irrelevant in every presidential election in my lifetime, because Georgia has never been politically relevant or competitive in a presidential election in my lifetime. Now the truth is if Georgia ever becomes a battleground state, which a lot of people are talking about right now, we have single party control of presidential elections, which is an incredibly dangerous proposition, even if it was my beloved Republican Party, right? So, philosophically, Georgia does not have electors to preserve the disproportionate political influence of the state of Florida. Article 2, Section 1 leaves it to the legislature to determine whether or not they want to award their electors in a different manner. The current system either works or doesn't work. That's up to you to decide as Georgians, but I've posited some very real problems with it for consideration, because I think all the problems I think are true for Minnesota are certainly true in Georgia, but that's up to you to decide. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact preserves the state power to award electors, reforms the current system, and makes every voter in Georgia politically relevant in every presidential election. And there's only one way to do that without abolishing the Electoral College and stripping the state of her power to award electors, and that's the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. There's only one other way to do it, which I would oppose, which is a constitutional amendment to strip the state of its power. National popular vote allows you to preserve that state power, which I think is in the best interest of the republic and sort of the responsible federalist approach, because the founders didn't leave this power to the legislature by accident. They left it to the legislature because they believed the legislature would act in the best interest of the people, not because they were afraid of the people, right? They believed the legislature would act in the best interest of their people and be the only effective check on the federal magistrate or the president. And that's why the power resides with the legislature. So, that's national popular vote. I hope I did that less than 20 minutes, I don't know. Anybody have